I'm going to talk about forensics of the election here. I want you to imagine for a second that a crime has been committed, let's say a murder, but instead of a dead body that you see, it's been our election process that has been taken care of. Now, we don't have any smoking gun. We don't have a person that has admitted to this crime, but we do have a bunch of evidence laying around. And what I'm going to show you is evidence from this crime scene. So I'm going to be taking you through an awful lot of data, so bear with me here. Let's talk about the voter rolls as a start. Now, this is a graph from Dr. Douglas Frank. He provided a lot of information both to Mike Lindell and to his website that I've drawn a lot of this information. On the graph on the left-hand side is a list of the population of voters, and then across the bottom is a list of the registered voters. As you move from the left to the right, you have more registered voters. Now, as you move up the vertical axis, you have a situation where you turn into more inflated voter turnout. And the same thing down on the bottom is that you have more of a dirty rolls as you move to the right. So where is Alabama? It's in this section here on the upper right-hand side, as you can see, in inflated voter rolls and inflated turnout. We have a lot of good company with us. For instance, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and other corrupt states. So we are not perfect in this situation. Now, Dr. Frank was invited to Wisconsin and was given database concerning their registrations. And he did a study of 3 counties, and you can see them listed there. What he noticed was that there were 3 spikes, and they correspond to the 3 elections, 2012, 2016, and the 2020 election. Now you notice that there is a big, huge spike in each one of these, as you can see here, here, and here. And what happened was, after each election, after the spike, there was a big dump in the registered voters, and you can see those dumps. Specifically, I want to call your attention to the 2016 election, where they lost 25% of their registered voters. Now, any person with common sense would say, did I lose 25% of my population in that county? Obviously, no. The other thing I want to point out too is after the 2016, there was a gradual add back into the registered voters in preparation for the 2020 election. Now, this does not happen, and it's not normal to fluctuate like this. So when Dr. Frank presented this to the Wisconsin House of Representatives, he was speaking specifically to the Speaker of the House. His reply to Dr. Frank was, hey, well, you picked up the 3 most popular counties. This is just an anomaly. Dr. Frank kind of laughed and says, well, I studied all of your counties of Wisconsin, and you can see that it happens everywhere with the same spikes. And this doesn't happen in Wisconsin. Dr. Frank found that this happened throughout the United States. He analyzed 46 of the 50 states and found the same thing. Now, you ask, why do they do this? Well, it's used for what is termed by Mike Lindell is a voter line of credit. If you were going to, it's no different than when you go to the bank and you want to borrow some money, you can take out a line of credit and they give you a line of credit. You can spend money as you wish. Well, instead of dollars, they're using voters, and they use the excess voters in these voter rolls to manipulate through algorithms on the machines. They have collateral that they can draw from, fake voters that they can manipulate the outcome of any election. So getting back to Alabama from Wisconsin, we have Alabama, where they ranked. Well, you notice that it was up in the upper right-hand corner of the graph. It was 97%. What else do we know about Alabama? We find out that there are 4,600 registered voters older than 110 years old. Interesting enough, a person asked our Secretary of State, our ex-Secretary of State, John Merrill, said, why is this so? And he said, as a reply, we have a lot of people that live long lives here in Alabama. It is kind of irritating that he would put somebody down like that. Another thing that I found out in looking at Dr. Frank's information, where he showed all of the counties in Alabama, 21 of the 67 counties had more registered voters than citizens. Again, this is not normal. That means that there is some cheating going on. Now, here's a graph. It's a little complicated, so I'm going to try to take you through this at a slow pace. You'll notice this blue line along the top in here, and it's buried amongst some other lines, but that represents the county of Madison. It's based on the 2020 census. And you can notice that there's two humps here, one for the millennials and one around age 60 for the baby boomers. Now, the other thing too I want to show is that the black line represents active registrations. And a couple things I want to point out here. It's not too important, but it does make you wonder where the black line exceeds the number of registered voters in those age groups exceeds the number of people living in that particular county. Now, when Dr. Frank looked at not only Alabama, but 17 or 18 other states when he got the data, he was able to find out that there was an algorithm that was used, very common in statistics, where they take there's a direct relationship of the registered voters to the recorded ballots. And for Alabama, and the other states vary with percentages, but for Alabama, the key is 64%. And when he looked at that and he discovered the key, he was able to predict how many people voted in those particular age groups, and you see that represented by this blue line here. Now, the interesting thing that comes up is that when you compare Dr. Frank's prediction with the actual ballots that were recorded along here, you notice that the lines pretty much coincide. Very unusual. In the land of statisticians, they can't say that two graphs correlate or they don't correlate. They have to come up with a value. And they came up with what's called a correlation coefficient. If you have a correlation coefficient of 1, that means it's a perfect match. A correlation coefficient of 0 means that there's no match at all. By the way, a -1 means that it's completely separate. Now, the thing here is that in Madison County, the correlation coefficient is 0.995. That is virtually impossible. And when you look at all 67 counties in Alabama, the correlation coefficient ranges from 0.93 to 0.999. Again, it is not natural. This is a man-made correlation. Now, I want to point out one more thing with this graph, is you'll notice this hump right here. This bump appears in each and every county. Again, it does not occur naturally. This means that these curves were man-made. The ballots recorded were created by a machine.